Hello, my name is Karyn Hurley, and this is Cynthia and Gary, and I am the co-founder of ATC, Addiction Training Center, LLC. We're located in Florida, and I'll give you a little bit about why ATC came about. And Cynthia and I have been working together, so we'll talk kind of about our companies and what we're doing and how we think they go together. So ATC came about because I've been in recovery for 39 years. And when I got to Florida, I started seeing what was happening, and I was really concerned about some of the brokering that was going on. I got involved in the task force. I got very concerned about what was happening to young people. I saw them going from treatment to treatment to treatment, and they were getting institutionalized instead of getting better. And, some of us have come together, and we'll talk about that really, how do we help people come into recovery when we knew what to do because we had a lot of people helping us. So we actually, my colleague and I, co-founders of ATC, we provide one-day courses with CEUs. We are educational providers for NADAC, which is the largest credentialing service for treatment. We're very proud of that. And we've trained over 150 people at this point, between bond agents, treatment centers, individuals, people just wanting to know what to do to help another human being. So with that, along the way, I was lucky enough to meet Cynthia. And when we met, we just matched. We sat down, we just had this hour-and-a-half conversation without any work whatsoever. We just matched. And since then, we meet, we talk, and we're really working hard to figure out how to help another human being. So why don't you explain about Women Empowering Women and what you think about that?
Every time I meet with you, I feel like I'm getting on fire again. I'm just on fire. So Women Empowering Women was founded because of a death in addiction. And the object of it is to empower one another. In moving towards that scenario of trying to help one another, yes, we're trying to lift people up out of the depths of addiction. Mm-hmm. Higher education is our purpose, to get them educated, but it's also about awareness and educating on women's issues with networking events and inspiring, empowering events that we have, which is how we raise our money. Al Kinkle, the dad of Kim Kinkle, who died, and I have teamed up together to really put together a plan for a recovery community organization where it's all about the connectiveness connected to it. Everybody needs to be connected.
Everyone.
So I ran a big community event called On the Table for regular people in the community who are really stakeholders. We're all stakeholders in this. There is not one facet of anybody that this crisis has not hit. Whether you're a parent, an employer, a worker, it's affected you if you're not the one being affected. After the event, trying to figure out how we're all going to work together so we're not in silos, all these resources we need to team up to lift up. What came out of it was that the number one problem that we're facing is stigma. And Karyn, I was floored. I was in front of a lot of people who are not in recovery, identifying myself as a person in recovery, and I was just wowed by that. I was wowed. And I had a long drive home, and I can remember just focusing on that, like, that's bigger than me. Mm-hmm. That's bigger than me. Mm-hmm. And on the way home, I was helping people who were reaching out to me for interventions, really, because that's what I do. I help people. And that's where I have taken your class. I've seen people who aren't in recovery in your class. I totally understand the concept that if you end up in jail, chances are you have, something's not going right in your life. And if somebody there is bailing you out, can do an intervention, offer you a different solution than what you're doing, wow, what a way to do that. But in general, that community needs to be educated. I work in recovery, so I'm around people in recovery a lot. I don't feel the stigma until I do an event like that. I didn't feel it until I did like that. I was just like, really? So how do we get people educated? As a nonprofit organization, I have access to free Narcan. Do a Narcan training. A Narcan training to what? To know how to use Narcan when you see somebody overdosing. That's where I think your piece can really help. If I can
Agreed.
use a Narcan training around learning how to do an intervention. This is a crisis event intervention. Something is happening to you, whether you need Narcan or not. And there's lots of crisis interventions. So that skill set brings to me a piece of compassion and empathy that reduces the stigma around what crisis we're all facing in this community.
I agree. My co-founder, Scott Jones, and I talk a lot, and he talks a lot about the opioid epidemic, the war on drugs. And it's bigger and bigger and bigger. The war has not worked. So what do we do? And, I have talked to, in the time that I have been in recovery, in the very beginning, I was so ashamed to be in recovery. And people would say to me, oh, you had a problem? And, I got used to being in recovery. So at this point, I don't care who knows I'm in recovery. It's been a lot of years and a lot of change and a lot of education, a lot of everything, and a lot of wonderful people that I've gotten to work with. However, there's a lot of people that feel that stigma, and that has to change. If you're a diabetic, you don't feel that. And if you have cancer, you don't feel that. Why, if you have a physical, mental, brain disease, would we feel that it's a horrible thing to have? Because we feel out of control? Well, I have a friend who's been in recovery 35 years who just had a stroke. He feels out of control, not from his using drinking days, but because his physical body doesn't work anymore.
Right.
There's interventions for that as well.
Right.
So we have to change things. My feeling has always been that as grassroots groups, that's what changes mindset of communities. That's what changes people's idea about what does an alcoholic look like. If you're in treatment, you're at stage 4. Why aren't we doing preventative work?
Right.
Why aren't we doing more about education? And we're the grassroots people. We're the bottom line in every community. Pull communities together. The reason that we started ATC was so that we could help other people understand and what to do and have a network of people so we can call each other, we can help each other, we can work together as a group. Because addicts are lonely people. We've talked about that.
Yes.
When do you become the group? When do you become a network? Well, a network of people doing the same thing is what's going to change this. It's not going to be legislation. It's not going to be all the things or the war. It's really going to be all of us with a different mindset going out there and showing what that mindset is about. Do you agree?
I totally agree. Because I think we look at it as it's not in my house, so it's not my problem.
Right.
And just feeling that stigma and I reached out to a lot of people. I even wrote about it in Facebook, but I said to my older son, I said, it just hit me. And I was feeling really down about that because I thought, should I have felt shame? I questioned myself up there on whether or not I should now feel shame for being a person identified in long-term recovery and having stigma be our number one problem. Because I just admitted I'm, what, a loser? Like, what was that?
Right.
I didn't know.
It looked like one to me.
Yeah, right. And I'm standing up here and you're saying stigma, but I just admitted I had a problem, right? And he said, but you're also, you're right, that stigma is the social force working against recovery. Living your truth and modeling for others how commitment to a life of recovery brings happiness is the tool you use to combat stigma. You offer an alternative social world where stigma has no power. So I like that because I had to step into that, for my son to come back to me and tell me that. I don't have time to feel the stigma or the shame around what has happened because my life is absolutely amazing because of everything that I've been through.
Me too. But
amazing.
But in the very beginning, we felt some of that.
Yes.
I remember feeling in the very beginning the shame that I couldn't do something. I remember my family saying, we don't have any alcoholism in our family. Oh, well, I came from, I don't know, Irish stock. They had a lot of alcoholism in my family, but they didn't want to admit any of that because that would mean what? That they weren't in control of their lives or they weren't successful or whatever that meant. The opposite has happened for me. Because I'm in recovery, I feel successful. I feel whole.
Right.
I feel all of the things that I was deprived of by chasing whatever that was. And life is so much different. And your son's right. If we model this,
Right.
if we model and live our lives the way that we do and share that with other human beings, people get to be better.
It's also about meeting people where they're at.
Yes.
The recidivism rate is costing hospitals billions of dollars, and not being able to meet them where they're at and offering them alternative through training mechanisms such as learning how to do an intervention, learning how to recognize that somebody's in a crisis. This isn't just a one-shot deal that I'm happen to be sitting in your office wondering, why I'm feeling numb when my blood alcohol level is, why am I even talking? The doctor wants to know.
How are we functioning? Well, we are.
You're here, why?
Right.
And yet I come back again, so how is that information being processed by professionals, by people in the community to recognize, even if it's the guy who's trying to cross the street, that you recognize he is a drunk. There he is. He's the drunk, right? Leave him alone. Get away from him. Don't want to go anywhere near him.
Exactly.
Is it possible that he wants his life to be different, but nobody's done an intervention to ask him?
Exactly right.
That he wants does he want his life to be different?
I was talking to a young man last night that is just struggling. And we talked for almost 2.5, 3 hours. And I called this morning and he made it through the night of not drinking and using. And isn't that what it's about? Going out of your way for another human being? I mean, isn't that what we're supposed to be as human beings? And we forgot to do that. I think what's happened is, and I see people relapse and they say, oh yeah, they're just going to relapse. They won't make it. They'll be back. The extraordinary has become the ordinary. Mm-hmm. So instead of thinking, oh my gosh, they relapse, they say, oh yeah, they're going to relapse. So we're not going to help them because they've already been through treatment or they've already been through something. Or I talked to a police officer a week ago. Oh yeah, we give them Narcan, then they just go out and use again, and sometimes they die. This is extraordinary. This is people, somebody's daughter, son, mother, father, and we just brush it off like it's not even real or human. That is not okay. We have to change the fiber.
It's not acceptable.
It's not
acceptable.
I totally agree.
We are to expect miracles because recovery is possible.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter what your pathway to recovery is. It's just possible. And if everybody had the right training to know how to face those people.
Exactly.
And instead of saying, what's wrong with you? Ask them what's happened to you, what's going on with you. Is there a way I can help? Do we not have any time to help anybody?
Exactly. Somebody's angry. We don't de-escalate them. We just help them or have them be more angry and prove that their anger is their problem rather than let's de-escalate that person. Let's calm that person down and find out what's really going on. Right. Let's help that human being. That's what ATC is really all about.
But people don't know how to do that.
That's why we have to train them. The education is really important so that how we talk to people, how we sit and relate to another human being. We've lost those skills or we didn't have them to begin with. I'm not sure which, but whatever's happening, we're not talking the way we used to. We're not connecting with other human beings the way we used to. It's time for us to do that.
When you say that, one skill set I've learned in recovery is listening.
Yes.
My boyfriend and I were talking about this morning is that it's learned because I'm listening for a higher power. I'm listening for the spirit within for guidance, right? So I learned to listen. So I see you, I hear you, and your voice matters. That I don't have to be reactive to it or attached to whatever you're saying. I just need to hear you. People want to be heard.
Sure.
I needed, so once you find a voice, you don't need it. But you're searching to find your voice. And once I have found it, it's not really that necessary.
Well,
'Cause now my voice is my feet.
It's interesting that you say that, because most often with really angry people, if you're calm and can calm them down, most often they'll cry because they're sad and lonely. It's not because they're really angry. They're sad and lonely, don't know what to do, and don't know how to move on in their life. So
It's funny, but I got somebody texted me a picture that said, telling a woman to calm down is as successful as baptizing a cat.
it's about right.
Yeah.
Well, you can't tell somebody to calm
Tell
down.
somebody to calm
no,
down.
you need the skills to
Right.
bring somebody
Right.
to calmness. You can't tell anybody to do anything.
And we were also going to talk one time about you and I about being brought up, which
Yes.
which reminds me that
the myths of womanhood.
my sister, it was famous in my household that she would be told she's one step ahead of a fit, and telling her to calm down. Right.
Oh.
So I saw how she got treated for saying that something wasn't right or not
Yes.
agreeing with something. So that I wasn't going to do that. I just didn't say. I wanted to fly under that radar. I didn't like how that felt on her. Never mind how it would feel on me. And those were the two.
It's interesting. My brother and I had the opposite.
We laugh about it today.
We had the opposite roles. My brother flew under the radar, and I was busy saying, why?
Yeah.
Well, you don't need to know. You're a girl, and you don't need to know those things. And regardless of how you fight those, you're brought up with them. You hear them. Right. They're in your mind.
Right.
And so all of that has to change.
So I think it's part of it of wanting to get the training for everybody. Even if Women Empowering Women were going to do an Narcan training, and I've agreed to do one because it's offered to me through
ATC,
DCF,
yep.
through free, that it has to be associated with a training on really how we're going to treat people. My wish is that you never have to use Narcan.
I wish it was that too.
That you never have to use it. But if you might get a skill set on how to treat other people in the community and not have a stigma around it.
And that's our whole mission. Our whole mission to train as many people as we can to work together as a grassroots group to make the changes that need to be changed.
What made a difference to me is that somebody cared about me.
Yes.
When I came into recovery. They cared
Me
about
too.
me more than I cared about me,
Me
at
too.
that point. Mm-hmm. So they had a skill set that they were taught.
Right.
How
we need to teach those
how to help me. Mm-hmm. If they had a stigma against, they would have just left me.
Right.
And the disease kills.
Disease kills.
The disease kills.
It sure does. There's people dying every day.
Right.
So with that, I think our next show should be about the myths of women and how we're brought up as little girls and how we're brought up, because there's certainly many of them.
There are.
So we will investigate that whole topic. In the meantime, Cynthia and I have been working together, and we're going to make sure that intervention course is along with Women Empowering Women, what you're doing. We'll get into the community, and we will help as many people as possible. Let's work together, folks. Let's make this change really happen.
End the stigma.
Right. So I'm Karyn Hurley.
Cynthia Weseman.
Have a great day.
Thanks.